I want to share with you a problem-solving technique called draw and quarter. Now, this is something that I learned many years ago as a programming student, and I like to share it with my beginning programming students to help them learn how to analyze a programming problem. Let's have a look. It's actually a very simple method. I have my students take out a clean sheet of paper and draw two lines, one down the middle and one across the middle. So we end up with 4 squares or 4 quadrants. Then we label them. The top left-hand corner is labeled input. The bottom right-hand corner is labeled output. The top right-hand corner is labeled calculations, and the bottom left-hand corner is labeled decisions. Now, when I start to look at a problem, I like to look at what are the inputs or what are the known values. What do I have to work with in order to get the answer? Let's think about that payroll program, computing gross pay with overtime, that we did in our last episode. You remember the if-then-else episode. Our input was hours worked and pay rate. Our output was gross pay. So our user would give us the hours worked and the pay rate. It was our job in our program to figure out what the gross pay was. Well, in order to do that, we had to do some calculations. We have 3 calculations here. Number 1, regular pay, is equal to the number of hours worked times the hourly pay rate. Now, the second calculation was to compute the overtime premium. So, in order to do that, we have to understand that the overtime premium is 50% of our base pay rate. And it's only paid on the hours that we worked over 40. So, the first task is to multiply the rate times 0.5. Or, yeah, you could divide it by 2. At any rate, we end up with half of our normal hourly rate. The next step is to subtract 40 from the hours worked. This gives us our overtime hours. Then we multiply the overtime premium rate times the overtime hours, and we store it into our overtime premium, which I've shortened here to just overtime. So now I know what the regular pay is, and I know what the overtime premium is. So gross is equal to the sum of the two. Gross equals regular pay plus overtime. Those are my 3 calculations. We've only got 1 quadrant blank, and what we need to do there is to determine whether overtime hours were worked. So it'd be hours greater than 40. So if hours are greater than 40, we would use our overtime calculation. And in our program, if they weren't, we just set the premium to 0. Okay? Now, it's a very simple, but yet very useful technique that you can use anywhere on virtually any problem. Next time you run into one of these storybook type problems, give it a try.